guys, welcome back to another episode of Pouring Out My Thoughts, the podcast where I talk about whatever I want, however I want, whatever I'm feeling or thinking that week. Hosted by myself, your favorite anonymous podcast host, HJ. This week, I did not choose a random topic. I have decided that this week I'm going to talk about something I've talked about in the past episode, basically parental support and what that looks like as an adult. And this week, I have a guest for the first time ever. It is my husband. Cue applause here.
Hey everyone, nice to see y'all, nice to meet y'all. Hope we're feeling good today.
They won't
I
see
am,
us.
well, I know. We're gonna go by husband. You can call me Huz.
No,
Yes.
hers is not gonna work. We're not gonna do that. We'll figure something else out. We'll get you some initials. But yeah, so we are married. We've been married for almost 6 months, but we've been together for 4.5 years. And we have a son who is one today at the time of us recording this. I'm recording it a little earlier than I normally do because this weekend is supposed to be our son's birthday party, but um, if you were anywhere in the South or the East Coast, you also are subject to the same winter storm that we have, so that may or may not happen. We'll see. But anyway, so we're talking about what parental support and guidance looks like when you become an adult. Because if you listen to my episode before about outgrowing your parents, you remember me saying that I feel like if you hear chewing, that's just my cats. Um, when it comes to your parents and how I feel like life should go is when you're a child, they're just teaching you, trying to help you. When you're a teenager, they kind of let go of the reins a little bit and kind of give you some guidance. They'll let you fall every now and again, but they're still there to like hold on to you. Then when you become an adult, it's just support and guidance. But I said that looks different for everybody. So I'm gonna ask you, what do you think support and guidance should be, or what do you think it should look like as an adult, especially now that we have a child and we're married and all that kind of stuff? What kind of help would you want from your parents?
Oh man, that is actually a very good question. So the thing that kind of separates your idea from mine, because we're on a little bit of a difference when it comes to opinions on the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of my biggest things is asking for emotional support without interference. Now,
What do
what
you mean by that?
the one of the big things that come to mind when you think of support is just like, oh, they need help. Let me jump in. Let me kind of assist them real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's something that parents have a rough time dealing with, especially since they've raised their child from the ground up. They taught them what to play with, what not to mess with, what to be weary of, and some things they're just simply not used to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but growing up, I feel like only your parents would really understand what you're going through. And sometimes live they live their lives through you. And what that kind of means is they kind of tell you where to go from there instead of just being an ear.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you have to remind them, hey, this isn't your life. You've been a teenager before, yes, this is true. However, there are some things that I have to experience on my own. There are some things that I've gone through that my mother has yet to have gone through, or if she ever will, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
She may not have knowledge on everything,
Mm-hmm.
but she can give her 2 cents.
Especially considering she's a woman and you're a man, it's
Yeah.
going to be very difficult to give opinions on certain things just on that alone.
hmm And for those that do know me IRL, which I'm sure none of you listening are well aware, but I was primarily raised by two women. My father wasn't in the picture. I was raised primarily by my grandmother and my mother. So it's a lot of women influence. Um, so I didn't really have a lot of male figures that were really guiding me growing up. One of which is my stepdad, who came in the picture later than, you know, a normal a normal relationship between your
You were
parents.
like 10,
Roughly like 9,
10,
10-ish.
which
I
is
was pre.
like that's like right before puberty. Well, for y'all, puberty is different. Our puberty
Yeah,
starts early. Our puberty for us starts once our periods hit,
right.
and that can for me that was at 10. So that
And
was like
there's
past
kind of
some
no
developmental age.
there's kind of no good gauge as to when boys kind of start. It's just like one day, oh look, I can do this now, and I start growing hair, and it's like, oh okay, it is what
Yeah,
it is.
I think that's a weird time to get a father figure in your life
Mm-hmm.
because scientifically our love maps, that's what some people call them, develop around age 6, 5 and 6 when you start to um, feel things towards your parents.
Mm-hmm.
They the if you're a Freudian person out there, then you'll know the Oedipus and the Electra complex. But it's basically the first people you fall in love with are your parents, and if you don't have those, obviously it goes deeper into that, and it can get worse if you're an adult. Just putting that out there, Oedipus and Electra complex are insane. But as children, though, um, obviously women will fall in love, or girls fall in love with their dads. They'll say, "You'll." It's common to hear a little girl say, "Oh, I want to marry my dad," um, at 4,
Look,
because like they don't know, but it's just because that's when they start to realize they have emotions for your parents. But to not have that, and you only had your mother and your grandmother around that age, and then well past that you finally get a male figure in that can be jarring for a 10-year-old.
it was very jarring. Just speaking on my own personal experience, like you kind of go your entire life having this sort of idea in your head about what a parent is supposed to be based on your own experience as a child
Mm-hmm.
or as a parent. Like, I speak now solely because we have a 1 year old up there, and I've learned so much in the past year. Even before that, when he was,
Cooking.
yeah, a little bun in the oven, it's like you have to prepare for so many things. There's so many things that go into childcare, so many things that go into childhood, and you kind of panic on the inside. Um, it's truly an experience that you have to be in it to understand. There are a lot of people who get like advice from non-parent friends, and they're just like, "Oh, well, if I had a kid, I'd do that." We're gonna stop right there because you don't have a child. So
Yeah.
how could you possibly really know what we're talking about?
Unless that person has childcare experience, because you have people who have been in the childcare industry for tens and dozens and 20s of years, 30s and 40s of years, never had a child themselves.
But
Those
that
people I'll take him some heat from, because that makes more sense. You've been, I may or may not listen to you, but it comes with a little bit more weight than someone who's never been around a child a day in their life telling me how I should know. But I
right.
want to go back to something you said. You had mentioned the fact of, specifically with your stepfather, um, considering he came into your life at a later point, does your expectations of support and guidance differ between your mom and your stepdad?
So yes and no. Um, for my own personal experience, just when it came to my stepfather, I was eager to just have another guy in the house. I was surrounded by women for majority of my life.
At that point, yeah.
And yeah, so me as a 9, 10-year old, all I knew was my mom. So when I did get around my stepfather, it was like you said, it was jarring. It was a totally new experience. My biological father, he was there for 3 years of my life, if we want to even call it that. Um, and that short amount of time, I mean, you can't tell a 3-year old really much.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really going to remember a lot of the stuff we've been through. Like, yes, I have pictures of them, but it is what it is. There are no like extremely fond memories of me and my biological. So when my stepfather came into the picture, it was a new experience. I treated him kind of like a friend. Like I knew he was my mom's boyfriend at the time. They're married now, obviously, but I knew like, yeah, it's another guy. It's another person that I can really try to bond with. Um, Because me growing up, I was never really with my peers like that. I always suited adults more. I don't know whose fault that was, but I gravitated towards adults, and that was something that was really like kind of off-putting for him, because his own father, my stepdad's own father, really like kind of just tossed him to the side and let him do what kids do in quotation. And he never really had a significant relationship with his father until he was grown. And kind of the same thing happened, where he kind of pushed me to be with other kids more, and I was very much like my mom's best friend. She confided in me a lot of things, and it was it was a relationship that really shouldn't have been as close as it was. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my mother to pieces. I would be lost without her, and her influence. But that also created a relationship between parents that is like she doesn't know when to stop.
So, for now, considering that was the experience that you had, how does that guide your expectations of how they should support you now? Because you had a very close relationship with your mother. In your mind, it was too close in the wrong way, or in certain
Hmm.
aspects,
In
as
certain
far in
aspects,
certain
because
aspects, and then you had a not as close as you wanted with the other.
hmm,
So now that you are an adult with your own child, what are those expectations now?
I mean, I've never been a parent before. I would hope that they would like kind of guide me in the right direction without putting hands on. And what I mean by that is they don't have to be the parent themselves. That was something my own mother was subject to because, if you remember what I was saying earlier, my grandmother and my mother raised me, and they clashed a lot because my grandmother had a different idea on how to raise me than my mother, and that caused a lot of friction between them. Just because my grandmother would go out of her way to do what she does for raising children instead of my mom. And it doesn't take rocket science to know that people who have two different ideologies on parenting, when they're conjoining to raise one child, it can get a little heated. Um, and I don't want that for my child. I don't want to argue with my mom about how I'm going to raise my child. I don't want her to really take the reins because not only is that not her responsibility, but
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, what's gonna happen if, like, God forbid, anything happens to my mom, and then it's like now my child refers to me or refers to you rather because you're the mom in a situation. It's like they're going to have such a deeper relationship with the other parent and be more malleable by that other parent than the primary parent, like you or me, for instance. Like I sought out my grandmother more for permission than I did my mom at a point. And it wasn't until my grandmother had moved out on her own to one of the senior citizen apartments that I actually like listened to my mom. But it wasn't all peachy because at first we clashed a lot. Um, I don't think I've ever told you this, but me and my mom actually used to get into it a few times, and had to separate us. It was never physical,
Mm-hmm.
but just because I guess prepubescent teen doesn't want to listen. I'm like 14, 15, not prepubescent, but I'm
You in there?
dead smack in the middle of adolescence. And tensions are high, hormones are high. I don't want to hear this right now. I'm going to walk out. There were many times where I walked out of a conversation between me and my mom because I was hot, she was hot, and I don't want that for my child. Like, if you want to go over to your grandparents' house, that's perfectly fine. They're going to have different rules over there. We're going to have different rules over here. Whatever goes over there, that's fine. However, when you get back in this house, you refer to me and your mother.
I do want to say something about that though.
Sure thing.
I would, I do agree that like the rules of that house, you have to respect that house. However, rules for our child follow.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are rules that we've implemented for our son, no matter where he goes, those rules still have to be abided by, as well as any boundaries that we set
Oh, of
with
course.
of it. So like if he goes to his grandparents' house or his godparents' house or his aunt, whoever,
Mm-hmm.
and we say, okay, he's not allowed to watch this show or he can't drink this thing or he has to do this by this time, just because he's in a new house and y'all allow those kinds of things doesn't mean that he's allowed to do them. So when he's
Mm-hmm.
there, you gotta nix that. So I wonder if, because in looking for, that would be like one of those things where you're looking for support, like, hey, can y'all watch my son real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like is a something that I feel like most parents would like hope for and expect their parents to help them with, in that kind of support and guidance, to, like in a physical way, to physically watch your children. Um, but what kind of things do you expect or would you like or want your parents to do if he's over there, especially as he gets older? You kind of gave me a little bit about how you would want your mom to, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm more curious in that you want her to guide without being hands on.
Mm-hmm.
um, Solicited or unsolicited, does that matter to you?
Um, I'm glad you asked that because that is also a very sensitive topic. Um, because I grew up, this was actually a pain point between
Yeah.
us, where I would give unsolicited advice and you didn't want to hear it because you didn't ask.
Yeah.
And I'm growing to understand that and I move accordingly with that about you. But when it comes to my parents, I'm used to that. I receive and give unsolicited advice, so I was used to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't affect me, but it does vary person by person.
Okay, so from your mom, since you're already used to that, it's not going to bother you too much.
Nope.
So, but I wanted to ask specifically, what kind of things are you looking for when our son is over there, specifically from your stepfather? Because we talked about this recently. That is his only grandfather that is actively in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have, technically, I have two fathers, a biological father and a no longer stepfather because my parents are no longer married. But I have two of them. Technically, realistically, are they in my life? No. But the ones that are active, our son only has one active grandfather. So, as that being his, not only just his active only grandfather, but that's a man to man type situation. So, what kind of things are you looking for as some kind of support for you and guidance for you in regards to our son, specifically from your stepfather? Because that's a men of generations, a man thing that I wouldn't be able to speak to.
No, see, just because of my own experiences, it's kind of rough to answer that because I was also primarily raised by women. And the thing that comes with that is I was kind of independent from man until he got there. The only thing I really sought out my stepdad for when I was younger and growing up was um, I sought out a playmate. I sought out certain things. Um, like when it came to experience with women, I ended up talking with him about that. And I got advice from both of my parents, but I would say that my stepfather's advice was way more significant just because he is a man, we have the same tools, blah blah blah. And it's a it's different coming from another male perspective than it is a woman because the woman's typically on the receiving end. Um, and when I had like conversations with my stepdad, it was among the have you done this yet? And it wasn't so much like, well, how have you been navigating? How have you been? It's like I said, I had a lot of unsolicited advice both sides, so I would get that. I would get, hey, you should, or, I'm gonna tell you this right now, and nothing was said prior. Um, and it kind of, I don't know, it sets an expectation in your mind that you're like, okay, so that means you're just gonna tell me stuff. Um, and I may or may not listen to it because now I'm an adult. Uh, but when referring to him for anything just parent related, that's kind of rough. You might have to come back to me on that.
Well, not just parent related, but just like what are you what kind of support or guidance would you want from him in regards to our son? Because you said that when you were I mean, he came into your life while you were about 10-ish years old.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to see you from 10 to now.
Right.
So there are some things that he could see on the outside looking in, like, okay, this is something that boys kind of do around this time.
Mm-hmm.
Are you expecting him to give you, are you looking for any kind of support or any guidance in that way once our son gets to be about that age?
Yes.
And what is that?
And I feel like a lot of those times I'm going to be like kind of out of mind because of the transition. He's going to be high in hormones whenever he gets to the age that I was really like just out of mind with. Like I said, I was going back and forth with my mom. Tensions were high,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it would be best if I got advice as to how to communicate effectively with my son. Just when he's got those moments in time where it's like he doesn't even want to be talked to, or he feels like he's too grown to do this, or blah blah blah. Um, I guess I would see what the experiences was like from my stepfather's perspective, rather than not rather than. I would rather seek out what his experiences were like when it came to me, because obviously he knew me for about 5, 6, 7 years at this point, and I would say he knew me pretty well, but I don't know. I
Okay.
would. I think the only thing I could really ask for is just
Advice.
yeah, advice on what I should be telling my son at this point in time, and what should I do when it comes to this particular point. Because he was preparing me for all of my experiences, sexual and non-sexual, whether it was a date night or whatever. He helped me with my athleticism because as you know, I was into track. I was
Mm-hmm.
heavily into track, and he had me on this training regimen, um, where I would do constant laps. I would run with ankle weights on. I would do squats. I would do the whole nine, and it would be it would be a little daunting. But I saw it as a father figure and a coach, and I guess what I'm looking for is just
How to do that?
yeah.
So, because we're coming up on time, if you could summarize in like 2 minutes, quickly summarize specifically you what does parental support and guidance look like for you, like what is it that you would want from your parents, just to summarize everything that you said today, quickly summarize what that looks like. What are you looking for from your parents in in that, in support and guidance? What do you want from them? What do you need them to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I need them to support without feeling like the parent themselves. I would seek out their advice. I would want them to let me in on how they figured out what to do with me in this particular situation. I would also ask them how to navigate certain things because while I don't exactly remember all of the things I was feeling in my particular moments as a teenager, I do know how I felt. And I even now I don't even know what I would say to myself then, just to rectify certain situations. I would ask them what would they what would they do for patience within themselves? What would they do for whenever a topic came up and they didn't have an answer? How would you navigate that? I would want a lot of verbal support. I don't want physical.
So a lot of this. So basically, what I'm hearing is you just want advice.
Yes. Because I mean, it's no longer their parents. They will always be parents, don't get me wrong. However, they are done raising me
Mm-hmm.
after a certain point. I'm not in their household anymore. I pay my own bills. I make my own decisions, of course, with you involved,
Mm-hmm.
because we are a unit. But
It's no longer their job.
nope.
So, are there other forms of support that you would like from them? Not just advice, but are there any other forms of support that you would want from them?
I mean, my my mom is very heavily into Christianity. I would seek out spiritual guidance as well. Have her pray for us, pray for me. Um, just pray for the longevity and the healthy future that we should have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've covered emotional. I've covered spiritual. I think that's really it. And I say that only because they're done raising their child, and now it's my turn. You know.
Is there any, because some people would argue that it is expected or that it is automatically assumed to receive physical support, whether that is financial, whether that is childcare, whether that is provisions, like whatever that is. Do you feel like that form of physical support is should be guaranteed? Or
Um,
do you feel like it is like a situational thing, or how do you feel about that?
I personally feel like it's very situational, because I feel like it that's another one that's also person to person, solely because I grew up very independent with my financials. When I did start working, a lot of it went straight to savings. I didn't really do anything with it. Now I got some good advice on how to manage credit, how to manage taxes, um, and even now I still struggle with some forms of the some forms of the tax. What you want to call it? Let's call it
We gotta file our taxes anyway,
I
so
mean,
taxes.
yeah. And obviously, one thing that's new to me is I'm only used to a W-2. You gotta file joint, and then you have to resubmit that information and get your tax return. And it's like, okay, my head hurts. I'm good off
That should have been
this.
taught in high school. I mean, I was homeschooled, so I
Yeah,
didn't.
that was
I
guaranteed in your curriculum. You know what I got?
It
the
wasn't really
mitoc.
guaranteed in my curriculum.
I
Cause
got the
life.
mitochondria
It
was the
was powerhouse
powerhouse
of
of
the
the
cell.
cell.
It's crazy.
I got Y equals mx plus b.
We
You
will
know,
talk
the things
about
that are
that.
important in life, the things that I haven't used in almost a decade.
Quick. What's the formula to calculate a slope?
But I just hit
I know. That was the point. That was the point. But still, but yeah, and another one that's almost people say is guaranteed, and I mentioned it, but childcare specifically, people get upset if the grandparents don't cover child, not only cover us and like pay for it, but if they're like, hey, how come you not coming to get your grandchild, or hey, how come you not, can you watch them, why can't you do that, what else you got going on, like that. I've seen people get in heated arguments over this, which I feel like is insane, because I personally feel like that
That is a
if,
sense of entitlement right there, is what
yeah,
it
like
is.
our parents, they're I would, while I would want my mother to want to be with my son, and she does,
Mm.
she really does. Um, I'm not gonna ever expect her to keep him.
Hmm.
Thank God she wants to, and I want that. I want her to want to, but I'm not gonna be upset with her if she does not want to. I'd be confused. I would be upset in general, but I'm not gonna blame her for not wanting to have another child. Even if I might be upset if it was just for an hour and she like no. Like, well, dang.
Well, the thing that comes with that is also what I was referring to earlier. It's no longer that parent's responsibility to
Right.
raise anyone else's child.
Well, thank you so much. Y'all didn't hear me yap this time. It's okay. I'll be back next week for my yap session. What am I going to talk about next week? I have no idea. I have a couple of ideas. I did read some more of Out There Screaming. I read the next two. Am I going to be finished with this by the 31st, which is Saturday? Probably not, because life. I would want to, but I don't think it's going to happen. Or I might choose another random topic from the from the oat milk container. We'll see. But thank you so much. Did you have fun? Did you enjoy this?
I sure did. I would love to be a guest again.
We'll see. But thank y'all so much for tuning in. You can find me on socials, on Instagram and on TikTok at fairynetwork.com. Oh my gosh, Fairy Network. One of them is fairy.network. I think that's TikTok. And Instagram is Fairy Network. You would think I would have it memorized by now. But that's FHERI Network for finding her identity. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.